Everybody, we're going to start our meeting. Welcome to the August 13th Zoning Board meeting. Minutes of tonight's meeting, as well as audio and video recordings, will be available later at the national.newhampshire.gov Agenda Center and select Zoning Board of Adjustment. The chair is in control of the proceedings and calls upon all who wish to speak in order, as their raised hands are observed. The board follows the meeting protocols procedures identified in its bylaws. The applicant will present their case for 15 minutes, followed by questions by the board. Next, persons wishing to speak in favor or with questions or opposition will be asked to speak for up to 5 minutes. If there are any questions or opposition, the applicant will have 5 minutes to present a response. Finally, one and only one person with questions or an opposition will be permitted to speak again before the board deliberates and determines an outcome. A timer is used to manage the speaking time. Mr. Falk of the Planning Department will notify us when 1 minute is remaining, and again when the speaker's time has expired. As we go along tonight, if there's any questions with the process, we'll be here to help you. Note that all votes taken during this meeting shall be done by roll call. Tonight, we'll be hearing cases for area variances. Variance is a request that seeks permission to do something that the ordinance does not permit. Variances also have 5 points of law to be met, different from those of special exceptions. Per the City of Nashville bylaws, the State of New Hampshire revised statutes, a minimum of 3 or more affirmative votes are required to approve any application. In addition, the board will hear all scheduled cases if a quorum of 3 voting board members is present at this meeting. We have 4 tonight. Unless anybody recuses themselves, there'll be 4 voting members tonight. Any citizen has a right to contest the decision that the board makes. Should we render a decision that you believe is an error, you have the right to request a rehearing. A written rehearing request must be received by the City of Nashville Planning Department within 30 calendar days from the date of decision. Should this board not grant a rehearing request, you can file an appeal directly to the New Hampshire Superior Court. Please contact Mr. Falk in the Planning Department for more information. So for tonight's meeting, we have the following full-time board members: Mr. Jay Mancara and myself, I'm J.P. Boucher. We also have 2 alternate members, Mr. Joseph Patry and Mr. Andrew Sylvia. In addition, at the table in the front, we have Mr. Carter Falk, who's the Deputy Planning Manager, and Ms. Karina Ochoa, who's the Zoning Coordinator. We're going to start the meeting by taking a roll call attendance. Mr. Mancara?
Present.
Mr. Patry?
Present.
Mr. Sylvia?
Present.
And Mr. Boucher is present. Is there any changes to the agenda, Mr. Falk?
No, there are not.
Thank you. Okay, we're going to start with the first case. I'll read the first case into the record. First case is for Ruben and Lena Gomez, 262 Lake Street. Ruben and Lena Gomez, owners of 262 Lake Street, sheet 136, lot 4, requesting a variance from Land Use Code section 190-16, table 16-3, to encroach 6 feet into the 10-foot required side yard setback to remove an existing 14 by 21 detached garage and construct an attached 18 by 30 garage with living space above. It's in the R9 zone, Ward 6. Is there anybody here to present that case? Come on up. All you do is give us your name and address, and you can pull that microphone down. Oh, you can pull it out. That's just as easy.
I think that's fine. Can you hear me? Okay. Lena Gomez, 262 Lake Street.
Okay, just tell us what you want to do.
Okay, so right now the garage that exists is a 14 by 21, is detached from the house. So what I'm asking is to have it kept where it is, which is encroaching 6 feet into the 10-foot line of the yard, so I can do a living space on the top, a top floor, but attach also the garage to the house. My mom has been living with us since my dad passed away, but she's been staying with us in the basement, and it's kind of cold in there. So the only way that I can continue having her with us is making a bedroom, which is only going to consist of a bedroom with a bathroom on top of the garage. But if I'm under the impression, what I think is it should have been 10 foot from the yard, and it's right now at 6 feet. So I want to keep it at 6 feet, but it's going to be now 18 by 30 and attached to the house now.
Okay. So, just to rephrase what you said, basically, the garage will not be any closer to the sideline than it is now.
Right.
And I know I walk a lot in that neighborhood, and I think your garage has been there for a long time.
Yes, it was already existed when I bought the house.
Right, okay. All
And I
right.
think the house was probably, I don't know, built 1950 or 60 or 70. It's an old house.
Right, okay. Are there any questions for the applicant? Mr. Sylvia?
Has your neighbors closest to the garage said anything about the proposal?
Yes, so the neighbor to the side where the garage is, they did approach me like 4 days ago just to ask if on the top floor where the living space is going to be, there was going to be any windows facing them, and there's not going to be any windows. The only windows that there will be is facing to Caldwell Street. And they were okay. They're like, okay, that's all we need to know.
Okay.
Other than that, nobody else has approached.
Any other questions for the applicant? You all set?
Okay.
Okay, you can sit down for, thank you. Is anybody else in the audience that'd like to speak in favor of the application? Seeing none, anybody with questions, concerns, or opposition to the application? Seeing none, I will close the public hearing and open the public meeting. I'm in favor of the application. Again, it's a pre-existing garage, so that garage has been there for a long time, longer than I think I've lived in the area. And again, I think it's, again, reasonable, again, to look for space to attach to the house. I think the applicant is being considerate to the encroachment to the neighbor, as testified by the applicant. I don't think this will be a detriment to the neighborhood. I think, again, I believe it'll be an improvement. And the home I know is very well kept also, so I know that it's going to appear to be, it's going to compare well and be in character with the neighborhood.
And I would agree. I support the application. There's no further encroachment. It's a reasonable use, just a bedroom and a bathroom on the second floor. And there doesn't seem to be any opposition from the neighbors.
Anybody else? All set?
Yeah, I don't have any concerns, so.
All right. All right, I'll make a motion. I'll make a motion to approve the area variance for Ruben and Lena Gomez, owners of 262 Lake Street, sheet 136, lot 4, requesting variance from Land Use Code, section 190-16, table 16-3, to encroach 6 feet into the 10-foot required side yard setback, to remove an existing 14 by 21-foot detached garage and construct an attached 18 by 30-foot garage with living space above. It's in the R9 zone, Ward 6. We find that the variance is needed to enable the applicant's proposed use of the property, given the special conditions of the property, and the benefits sought by the applicant cannot be achieved by some other method reasonably feasible for the applicant to pursue other than the variance. Again, the garage has been there for a very long time. The applicant is not asking for any additional encroachment to the property sideline. It is within the spirit and intent of the ordinance. It will not adversely affect property values of surrounding parcels. It is not contrary to public interest, and substantial justice would be served. So again, I make a motion to approve the area variance.
Second.
Seconded by Mr. Sylvia. Any discussion? All those in favor? That's 4-0. Congratulations, your application's been approved. So I didn't mention this before. There's a 30-day window of appeal. Anybody could appeal this decision. There's a 30-day window of appeal. Just be aware of that. But if you have any other questions, you can contact the planning department. So good luck with your project. Thank you. With that, I'll close the public meeting for case number 1. And you're all set to go if you like. You don't have to hang around. Okay? We'll open the public hearing for case number 2. Case number 2 is the Douglas C. and Ann E. Tamposi Revocable Trust of 2023, Owners Douglas Tamposi, applicant, 215 Pine Hill Road. Sheet F, Lot 115, requesting a variance from Land Use Code Section 190-16, Table 16-3, to encroach 7 feet into the 20-foot required side yard setback to construct a roof patio in conjunction with an attached home addition on the rear of the home. It's an R30 zone, Ward 1. Welcome. Just give us your names and address, please, for the record.
Doug Tamposi,
I'm Ann Tamposi.
215 Pine Hill Road, Nashua.
All right, great. Just tell us what you want to do.
We're putting on a kitchen addition, and we're trying to do an overhang for a patio area, and the overhang for the addition is what is encroaching on our small lot. So it's 7 feet into the 20-foot variance. That part isn't, it's only the overhang, not the structure of our intention.
So that's about it. It's pretty simple, I
Pretty
guess.
simple.
Are there any questions? So is there anything else you want to add? Oh, Mr.
Did you look at any alternate locations for where you might put the?
Well, we're doing a kitchen addition, and we're expanding, bumping out our kitchen, and that's where that landed.
Thank you.
Any other questions? You all set? Anything else you want to add?
You know, our family's getting larger, that's why we chose to expand on our kitchen. We're you know, kids are getting, we have
Grandkids.
5 kids, and now they're getting married and grandkids, and at Christmas, they're like, this is really small. So that's why we chose to expand our home so we could stay and enjoy family there, so.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
Yep, thank you.
Thank
You can have a seat.
Yep, thank you.
Is anybody else in the audience like to speak in favor of the application? Seeing none, is anybody in the audience who would like to speak with questions, concerns, or opposition to the application? Seeing none, I'll close the public hearing and open the public meeting. Go ahead, Mr. McCarron.
I support the application. I think it's really pretty straightforward. The desire to have an overhang over the patio, I think, is certainly a reasonable one. And given that it's alongside the kitchen addition, which makes sense for if you're cooking out or wanting to entertain, it doesn't appear to impact any of the neighbors negatively. So I support the application.
I'm also going to support the application for the same reasons he spoke to. Any other comments? Okay. Does anybody like to make a motion, or?
Make a motion.
Mr. Silva.
All right. In regard to the Douglas C. and Ann E. Tamposi Revocable Trust of 2023, owners Doug Tamposi, applicant 215 Pine Hill Road, Sheet F, Lot 115, requesting variance from Land Use Code, Section 190-16, Table 16-3, to encroach 7 feet into the 20-foot required side yard setback to construct a roof patio in conjunction with an attached home addition on rear of home, R30, Zone Ward 1. I move in favor of this. The variance, I believe, is needed to enable the applicant's proposed use of the property, given the special conditions of the property, and the benefits sought by the applicant cannot be achieved by some other method reasonably feasible for the applicant to pursue other than the variance. As mentioned, this is for the kitchen, and it'd be impractical to move the kitchen to another part of the house, so this is where it's going to be. It's within the spirit and intent of the ordinance. It will not adversely affect the property values of surrounding parcels. It is not contrary to public interest, and it would do substantial justice.
Second.
Second by Mr. Patry. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? That's 4-0. Congratulations, the application's been approved. Again, as I spoke to the first case, there is a 30-day window of appeal, but other than that, you're all set. Thank you very much, have a good night. With that, I'll close the public meeting for case number 2 and open the public hearing for case number 3. Case number 3 is for Charles H. and Gabriella H. Bentley, trustees of the Bentley Family Trust, owners, 55A Middle Dunstable Road, Sheet B, Lot 1614, requesting variance from Land Use Code Section 190-16, Table 16-3 for minimum lot width, 120 feet required, 100.2 feet proposed to subdivide one lot into two lots in the R18 zone, 19. Welcome.
Good evening, Mr. Chair, members of the zoning board. My name is Morgan Hollis. I'm an attorney with Gottesman and Hollis, 39 East Pearl Street in Nashua. I'm here this evening representing the owners of the property, who are Charles and Gabriella, who are trustees of their revocable trust, the Bentley Family Trust. The property is at 55A Middle Dunstable Road. It's at the intersection of Ridge Road and Middle Dunstable Road. It's located in an R18 zone. In an R18 zone, the minimum lot size is 18,000 square feet. This particular lot is 40,149 square feet, so it's more than double the minimum lot size. It has a house on it, but the house is located at or near the intersection. And then there's a large vacant area if you're on Middle Dunstable looking to your left. That is the large area which is proposed to be subdivided off of the main house lot. What's missing is we have a frontage requirement of 100, and we meet that, but there is a minimum lot width requirement of 120 feet, and it does not meet it. If you look at the lot size as shown on the plan before you, you'll see it's a bit of an unusual shape with a kink near the front of the lot along Middle Dunstable Road. And as you know, the lot width is measured only at the setback line. It's not measured in the middle of the lot. It's not measured at the rear. It's right at the setback line. And at the setback line, we only have 100 feet, and we need 120 feet. Other than that, this lot complies with the minimum lot size area. As shown on the plan that's in your packet and up on the screen, a house of fairly normal size, 28 by 42, fits well within the side yard setbacks, the rear yard setbacks, the front yard setbacks. This particular plan shows the house to the rear, and as we have become aware, the neighbor to the rear has some objection over that. I'm assuming you got a letter from them, but they're probably here this evening. And my client is just showing that house at the rear as an example, has no objection to moving that house towards the middle of the lot, say 50, 60 feet away from the boundary line, if the board felt that that was an issue in terms of impacting the neighbors. But the driveway can come off of Middle Dunstable Road. There's adequate frontage along there, and the house could be located somewhere near the same area as the current house as shown on the plan. There are 5 criteria. The first criteria is that the proposed use will not be contrary to the public interest. The proposed use is a permitted use, and that is single-family home. And the only variance we're requesting is from minimum lot width of 120 down to 100. And it's not against the public interest because the purpose of an ordinance, the ordinance on width, is to make sure there's adequate area between buildings and adequate area to put a house in. And if it's too narrow a lot, you can't put a house without encroaching in side yard setbacks, and you can't put a house without affecting your neighbor on either side. In this instance, the house on one side is my client's, and the house on the other side is on the other side of a drainage swale, man-made created drainage swale which drains lots behind it down to Middle Dunstable Road and across and under the road. So in this instance, there's plenty of room, as you can see on the plan, for a house, no matter where it's located on that lot, and it won't be contrary to the public interest in that regard. It will be the same character. I don't know if you can go to another slide and show the, there it is, that tax map lots. You can see the lot is outlined, and you can see the neighborhood lots along Middle Dunstable and also in the rear of it. You can see those lots are roughly 18,000 to 20,000 square feet. So if you were to cut the proposed lot in half, both the lots would be approximately the same size. So if you grant the variance on lot width, it would allow the subdivision, which would allow lots of about the same size in the neighborhood. It's not going to alter the character of the neighborhood. There's no threat to health, safety, and welfare if you granted the variance because it's serviced by public water and public sewer. And there's no impact on anyone's safety. The driveway could come out on Middle Dunstable, could also cross the back of my client's property and come out on Ridge if that was a necessity. So either way, there is no threat to safety. Number two, granting the variance will observe the spirit of the ordinance. The spirit of the ordinance, as I mentioned, is to make sure there's adequate width between houses as located. Side yard area is shown on the plan. There'll be no encroachment in the side yard. A house can fit well within the bounds, and there'll be no impact on the purpose of that ordinance. As well, the general purpose of the ordinance is to prevent overcrowding, and this house will fit well within the standard lot size of the 20,000 square foot lot, which will result. Again, won't alter the character or threaten health, safety, or welfare of the public or private interest. Number three, substantial justice would be done. This is a very large corner lot. It's 2 times the size of most of the other lots shown in the neighborhood. If you could go to the next slide, there's an aerial slide. You can see better by the aerial how it shapes up and fits on that particular lot area. You can see the lots behind it, the homes behind it, and the homes along Middle Dunstable. Across the street are cluster homes, and so it's obviously not impacting those people, but I think it gives you a pretty good idea of the neighborhood. This granting this variance would cause no harm to the public. As you know, the standard is granting a variance can't cause harm to the public, which outweighs the gain to the individual. In this case, there would be no harm to the public if you granted the variance. Number four, not diminish the values of the abutting properties. I think this is where the letter from the abutters comes into play. They have concern there in the rear, and they are concerned that it will adversely affect the value of their properties. As you know, and it's quite clear, they have a view from their backyard into my client's side yard and backyard, and right now that side yard is empty. My clients could put a barn there, they could put a garage there, they could put a tennis court there, they could do a lot of things there. So what you see is not always going to be what you have. I know they feel that they don't want to have their view altered, but it's just going to be another house. It can be moved forward closer to the front of Middle Dunstable. That's why I raised that early on. My clients, as well as the abutters, could landscape and encourage their own privacy from either side of the stone wall that's back there. And as I say, my clients are willing to have that if you felt that that would adversely impact. Since the objection of the neighbors came in kind of late, obviously they got notice and realized what was going on, and they don't get notice until 10 days before. My client authorized me to engage an appraiser, so I did go out and engage an appraiser, and the appraiser went out and, excuse me, and looked at the site from my client's backyard, took a number of photos which I found to be helpful, and wrote a report. And well, I've submitted the report. I know you all haven't had a chance to look at it, but I think if I might, Mr. Chair, I'll pass it out.
Yes, please. Mr. Patrick can take that for you.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
And I'm just going to read the relevant part of it, which says, I'm pleased to submit my analysis with regards to the above captioned property of a variance to request to allow subdivision 1 oversized residential lot into 2 within the R18 zone. One of the lots does not meet the lot width requirement except in the rear of the lot. It goes on to say the site and abutting sites were inspected and photographed. I reviewed and analyzed the variance application, zoning ordinance, proposed plan. It describes the property just as I've described it, and subject direct butters are in the B suburban residence, that is R18 zoning district, and also on the opposite side of the R4 district. Subject neighbors in the R40 zone are multifamily, whereas directly abutting neighbors are all single-family residences in the R18 zone. I opine that allowing these lots for single-family use where water and sewer are available and parcel zoning is residential in nature does not alter the character of the neighborhood and will not detract from the aesthetics of the area. The position of a building envelope farther back from the road, while admittedly is nearer to the subject's rear lot line, is not inconsistent with distances between structures in the neighborhood, as can be seen in the aerial view depicted on subsequent pages. No abutters will notice any difference, with the exception of the rear abutter at 6 Polycomb Drive, whose home is already visible from the subject's improvements. The distance between structures of this abutter and one of the newly created lots behind it would be reasonable for the neighborhood. In my opinion, granting the variance requested to allow subdivision of one oversized residential lot into two, with one lot of 20,133 square feet and one of 20,016 square feet, where one of the lots does not meet the width requirement except in the rear lot, will not adversely affect the real estate values of the abutters or the neighborhood in general. And I particularly think the picture's worth 1,000 words in this case. It shows the aerial picture with it outlined. If you go on, it shows the tax maps, which I've shown up on the screen. It also highlights the picture. Now, the picture he used and described shows the house located to the rear. As I mentioned, my client is willing to stipulate that the house should be at least 70 feet from that rear line, and that might provide some natural buffer. I think the aerial view of the neighborhood shows what he's described. And then the photographs taken from the street show exactly what you're looking at and, in fact, what the neighbor looks at. There's an empty lot there with a raised garden bed and a small structure, looks like a well type of structure. There's also some pictures of the drainage swale in the area, and then views looking towards the rear of the lot. So all of those pictures are submitted, and the opinion submitted in support that it will not adversely affect the value of the surrounding neighborhood, surrounding properties. And number 5 is that there's an unnecessary hardship created if you don't grant the variance. This is the largest single lot in the area. You can see by the tax maps. It's also on a corner lot. There's an existing house which is located essentially on one half of the property. The desire is to make reasonable use of the property, and because of its uniqueness and, as I described, the unusual shape along the frontage there, you end up with less than legal lot width. You meet the frontage, but not the width. There's no fair nor substantial relationship or connection between the purpose of the ordinance, which is let's make sure the houses have adequate width between them, and enforcement against this lot, as there clearly will be width, adequate width, as shown on the setback lines with the house located within the box. And finally, is the proposed use reasonable? It's reasonable because it's a permitted use, single-family home. Happy to answer any questions you might have.
Mr. McCarron.
I'll ask a question of you, although it might be a question for staff. In the application, the term drainage swale is used, and the letter we received from the abutter is referred to as a stream. Is the drainage swale or stream a jurisdictional wetland?
I'm happy to try to answer, and the staff can answer for you technically if you want, but I do have a NHDES map of all the wetlands in the area, and it's a disconnected water course, which doesn't make it a stream. That's the official NHDES, as well as the city ordinance defines wetlands and defines streams, and it is not identified on there as either a prime wetland or critical wetland. And when you get down to the wetland categories of other wetlands from 3,000 to 9,000 square feet, it states isolated man-made drainage ditches are not included, and this was one of those.
Thank you.
I don't know if Carter has anything to add.
Mr. Wolf.
I don't have anything to add. That's exactly what I would have said, although it doesn't show on our GIS maps as a wetland at all, so it's identified as a drainage ditch.
The wetland is across the street, under the road where the drainage goes, and then there is a wetland in there. So it was constructed to drain those other lots to go down into there.
Thank you.
Just to clarify, your client was willing to make the stipulation that the home would be no closer than, was that 70 feet off the rear property line?
Yes.
70?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Is that
Just
correct?
wanted to make sure I had it right.
Yeah, so, yes, that's correct, right?
Thank you.
Okay. All right, any other questions? Mr. Sylvia?
When was the swale created? You said it was man-made?
Probably back in the original development. I don't have an answer.
Okay. And it appeared on the map that you provided that the new building would not be on top of the swale. Would the swale still be there in addition to the house? in the
That's
new-
correct. The swale, there'll be, won't be on the bank, it won't be in the waterway. It'll be within the box, building box.
And did the appraiser or any other experts talk about the hydrology of the area? Would that impact any stormwater, any
It
flooding?
will not impact stormwater because it'll be up on the higher side of it.
What's up? Okay, thank you. Any other questions by the board? Thank you. Anybody else in the audience like to speak in favor of the application? Seeing none. Anybody in the audience like to speak with questions, concerns, or opposition? All right, come on up. Give us your name and address, please.
Hi, good evening. I'm John Wagner from 6 Poliquin Drive, the abutter to the rear. So I do have several concerns about this. And I guess I found a few things in the application which I believe are wrong. And I guess I'd like to start out with saying the Bentley's attorney is correct. One of the issues we have is on the plan, the proposed house is pushed way back on the lot, which is, you could see from the photographs and the other plans, that's very out of character for our neighborhood. The houses all have good space in the backyards between each other. And this would be particularly close. And so it's kind of a privacy and just a out of character with the neighborhood issue. And I mean, the reason for that is because the lot's too narrow and it was pushed back, I believe, on the plans so that there was room to make the house big enough. And the application says that where the house is does have 120 feet width, but looking at the plan, I don't see that. I see it's 110. And then it's not 120 until it's past the house. But I do have concerns about the driveway too, as the Bentley's attorney also mentioned. Well, there's possibility they could run the driveway up to the Middle Dunstable, or there's a proposal in which that Charlie showed me that had the driveway running back of their current house along our neighbor's property and along our property and turning in, coming off of Ridge Road. And I think that would be really unsightly, and again, out of characteristic, snaking a driveway through a couple, different properties to get to this house. I think one of the issues, I'm not sure why that was proposed, but one of the issues with this property is it's got a very steep grade leading up to Middle Dunstable Road. I sent the email to you, and there was a topographical map. You can see the steep grade. So I wasn't sure, can they actually build a driveway, down this, is the grade too steep? And if they move the house forward, it'll be even steeper now. So that's another concern. But we should talk about what I call the stream, and they call the drainage swale. It's not disconnected. It goes from the wetlands across Middle Dunstable, appears natural to me, and goes all through our neighborhood over and eventually enters into Salmon Brook across Ridge Road and behind the townhouses. Salmon Brook is identified as a primary wetland in Nashua. And the ordinance says that, feeder streams into primary wetlands require a wetland buffer space. And the ordinance says if it's a tributary to a primary wetland, it's a 40-foot wetland buffer for that source. So I don't see any, I know there's a 20-foot keep-out easement, but we also have this wetland buffer to deal with. This stream already has drainage issues. Several times last year, it overflowed from the Bentley's property and washed down this piece of property we're talking about and flooded my backyard. I think I've sent you pictures of that. I also have a photograph I found of the actual water flowing down the property, so I can give you that if you'd like. So there, and I think, putting a house right, I see it's right at that, 20-foot easement, but if there's even a more bigger buffer zone, I don't see how this is practical to have that house there. There's also, other things about that stream. There's trees along it. I think those trees would have to come out if they're going to put a house there. That's another violation of the wetland buffer. And also, there's a minimum lot size requirement. I'm trying to get in before my 30 seconds here. That I understand in Nashua, any area of wetland is not to be used to calculate that minimum lot size. And if you calculate that wetland area, I'm not sure how to calculate the size of it, but if it's the 20-foot keep-out easement along it, and it's 170 feet throughout the lot, then that would be 3,400 feet of space that could not be counted for minimum lot size. So in summary, I think there's a lot of issues, and the plan doesn't address these, and I think someone needs to actually figure out what's allowed with this stream, this perennial stream. I mean, this flows all year long. It's pretty important. Yeah, so that's my issues as fast as I could deliver them.
Any questions? Mr. Sylvian?
If there's a special condition for something, a wall or some kind of sound reduction or some kind of hedges or something on the driveway easement, would that change your opinion at all of the driveway?
And the driveway's a big one for me. Like, that's just so, yeah, I'm really concerned with how that would look. I don't know. I'd have to look at that.
Okay.
I'll say if they could move the house forward in the lot, that does a lot for me. Yeah. But snaking a driveway in between everyone's houses is really out of character. I mean, it's about the integrity of the neighborhood, and I think yeah. I guess I'm not ready to say yes to that.
All set, Mr. Sylvian?
Yeah.
Okay, any other questions? Thank you. Anybody else in the audience would like to speak with questions, concerns, or opposition to the application? Okay, seeing none, the applicant has 5 minutes to come up and rebut that, and then, sir, you will have an opportunity at the end. Before you start, Attorney Hollis, I'd like to just state that there was a letter from Brandon Billings for this case, and they, in summary, they are in opposition for this project. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. If I might, I'm going to refer to a plan which I had prepared in case the issue of where the house could fit showed up.
Okay, sure. Thank you.
Our neighbor has raised issues of the house being proximate to the neighbor, the house being proximate to the wetland, potential driveway impacting them, stream versus drainage swale, wetlands buffers, drainage issues, and calculation of minimum lot size. And I would say to the board that while they're all relevant issues to the neighbor and to the neighborhood and to my client, they are not relevant issues to the zoning board on the issue of a minimum lot width variance. If we meet all the requirements, the 5 criteria to the variance, and none of those issues have to do with health, safety, or welfare. None of them have to do with the character of the neighborhood. They all have to do with if it's going to be subdivided, does it meet all the ordinance requirements? If you approve this variance, it goes to the planning board for a subdivision. That's where these issues belong, not before the zoning board. As I say, they're all legitimate issues, but I don't believe they have anything to do with the criteria, the 5 criteria on whether or not a variance and relief should be granted from the minimum lot width. Nevertheless, what I did was ask Maynard and Paquette to prepare a plan showing where the house would go, because my client agreed to set it back 70 feet. And this is where the house would go. As you can see, it's almost in the same area as the existing house. There's no need to move it all the way to the front, although there is a little more room there to move it forward even more if you had to. But that places it certainly in the middle of the lot, which is what we stipulated to 70 feet back. The lot itself, the distance, if you add the 2 lengths up, one length is 173, and the other length, which is, because of the unusual shape, longer, is 200 feet. So if you looked at that scale, you could see that house is more than 70 feet back. There's room in there. And if you located a house 70 feet back from a boundary line, that gives someone a fair open space without a house on them. Believe me, I live in a neighborhood that is now under development, and I've been looking at a vacant lot for the last 30 years, and I now have a house 15 feet away. But that's what the law allows. Things change. So in our instance, my client is willing to stipulate to move that house forward, but again, I urge the board to consider the 5 criteria on the lot width. I don't think that they're relevant, other than if there's an issue of devaluing the property, and I think we've addressed that with stipulating to moving the house back. As to the driveway itself, again, I think that's going to be an issue at the planning board, but I show the driveway on this plan where it can go, and I really don't think that that's an issue before the board one way or another. That my client could build a driveway on their property and back to a shed or a barn or whatever on wherever they wanted to be out there. But in this instance, I wanted to show the board that a typical house of a fairly good size, 28 by 38, can fit within that block. Happy to answer any questions.
Any questions?
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Wagner, you do have time to come back and rebut, if you'd like, and just give us your name and address. And could, Mr. Patrick, could you share that drawing, just so that he
Yeah, thanks. I'm at a little
understands
disadvantage here.
what is?
I'd like to. Yeah, so like I said before, I mean, if that house is moved forward, that's a lot better, like, because I do think if it were back against the backyard, it would affect our house value, our property value. And, but as far as, public welfare, whatever, I think that drainage system is really important. And you can see that we have some issues there. And I don't even see, I guess what I'm concerned with is I see coming down the road, it's going to be a lot of variances needed here. And so I feel like, well, we should know what's going to happen here, what's going to be needed before we go down this road. Is it a ditch? Is it a stream? Is it a wetland? I think this needs to be answered.
I think through testimony and through the research, NHDES has jurisdiction on all of this, and they don't, from our testimony, they don't characterize this as wetland, nor does the city. So I'm not arguing what I just saw in the picture. I'm just saying, in this case, just so you understand, where what we're looking at, what we hear.
Yeah.
So it doesn't mean that's not what your experience is or what you believe you see.
True.
And again, you live there, we don't, we live there, so
Yeah.
I know that you experience that. But I just want you to understand that, again, we're not, because if there was a wetlands there, this would be very different. There would be a different bar to be reached. And then, again, just like when there's conservation land and et cetera, there's a lot more steps involved when people want to do projects or encroach into wetlands to do any work. So I just want you to understand that we take it pretty seriously when there's these situations that are admits applications.
So I'm looking at the Nashua ordinance 2362, which says, it identifies the critical wetlands, and Salmon Brook being one of them, or Salmon Brook a primary. And it says the critical wetlands are the following borders of water bodies, but critical wetlands also include any perennial streams that are tributaries to prime wetlands. It's not required to list them all here, right? Say any. And so I believe that could be covered here, right? Even if it's not a critical wetland, if we go down to the next, it says even intermittent streams are streams with a fine channel that may not flow the entire year, and intermittent streams are covered by a 20-foot buffer measured from the bank. This is intermittent, flowing 100% of the time, but it's not an isolated ditch. So I disagree with this. I don't think we understand this here, and I think it needs to be looked at.
Sylvia.
On the blueprint that Attorney Hollis gave us, it looks like the typical house that they want to put is not on the drainage well or perennial stream. Would that make any impact, even though it's within the buffer?
It's right up against the 20-foot keep-out easement, which would put it much closer than the 20 feet from one bank.
Okay. Would they be? Do you think they'd be able to do anything that could alleviate any drainage issues in your yard?
Well, I don't know. I mean,
I don't
I'm
know
not
either,
an expert about that. But like I said, if the driveway could go there and that house could be moved up there, I'm a lot more comfortable with it. But I am concerned about the drainage that's keeps happening. But I'm saying it's going to be much worse for this house.
So again, just to bring it back, just so that we're on the same page.
Yeah.
And you understand where we're coming from. As Attorney Hollis stated, and it's true, we're here for the lot width only, for the variance on lot width. When this goes, if this were to be approved subdivision, this goes to the planning board. Those folks are the folks that kind of have that expertise in delving through all this stuff. And this is where, if this were to be approved, this is where you want to go. Okay, this is where you want to be present to voice all your concerns about how this lot will be developed in the end. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
So I just wanted to give you that heads up.
Mm-hmm.
Okay?
So approval of this does not require the house to be put where they're proposing on this plan. It doesn't require anything what they're saying here to be done. Is that what you're saying?
We could put we're going to discuss that
Okay.
when we go into our public meeting, but we could decide as a board to put stipulations on any variance that we're hearing. Okay. So we will consider everything that we've heard, and through our discussion, we'll go through that. But we're not in that phase right now. We're just gathering information, listening to everything that's said by the public, and then we'll go into our public meeting.
Okay.
Okay?
Yep.
All right. Thank you. Thanks.
Thank you.
All right, appreciate it. With that, I'm going to close the public hearing and open the public meeting. Mr. McCarron.
I do support the variance that's requested. This is a very large lot for the area. Overall, I think subdividing and putting another home here is consistent with the density of the area. Clearly, it meets that requirement. The wetland issue is, something I raised because I did want to get affirmation that this was not considered to be a wetland. It's considered to indeed be a drainage swale. Should any evidence come forward to the contrary at some point in the future, then perhaps this would be before us again. Perhaps it wouldn't proceed. But right now, the only question in front of us is the variance for the frontage. I do think that, the impact to the neighbors to the rear is something important for us to consider, and I would support a stipulation that the house be located no closer than 70 feet to the rear lot line. I hear that the driveway location is an issue for the planning board, but I think in this case, the addition of a home on this lot, one of the things we have to consider in allowing this lot to be created is the character of the neighborhood, is the impact to the abutters. And so I would also support a stipulation that the driveway access for this lot be from Middle Dunstable Road only. I'd be interested to hear what everyone else has to say.
Mrs. Sylvia.
I think those are good conditions. I nominally support this. I am definitely concerned about the drainage in the neighbors' yards, although it looks like Attorney Hall has said, I believe that we're limited to the four corners of what's before us in this variance request. So I think if we can strike a balance between making sure that the neighbors' properties aren't adversely affected significantly, while also making sure that we're just focusing on the subdivision, that might be the best path.
I'm also inclined to support it, but with the stipulation. I would say substantially similar maybe to the proposal from the Maynard and Paquette. Something, that way it wouldn't have to necessarily be exact, but something I think that keeps the intent and the spirit of their proposal.
I also support the application for the reasons spoken to. Yeah.
If I could just with a follow-up, to Mr. Sylvia's comments, I agree, I have concern about the drainage. I'm not an engineer, and I couldn't think of a way to engineer it, but I'm going to trust that the planning board, should this go before it, which does look at drainage, will absolutely take that under advisement and will consider, clearly, under the city's ordinances, you cannot adversely impact an adjacent property. You can't put more drainage on it than is coming now, but nevertheless, I think that is absolutely an important issue, and I trust the planning board will review.
Yeah, and I think that's one of the criteria, right? It's not that it doesn't increase anything.
Right.
Can't make it any worse than what it already is. Okay, any more discussion? Would anybody like to make a motion? Mr. Vicara.
I'd like to make a motion that the application of Charles and Gabriella Bentley, trustees of the Bentley Family Trust, owners of 55A Middle Dunstable Road, requesting a variance from Land Use Code Section 190-16, Table 16-3 for minimum lot width, 120 feet required, 100.20 feet proposed, to subdivide one lot into two lots, be approved. We find that the variance is needed to enable the applicant's proposed use of the property, given the special conditions of the property, that the benefit sought by the applicant cannot be achieved by some other method reasonably feasible for the applicant to pursue other than the variance. We find, and mainly the conditions that we find is the large size of the lot relative to others in the area, as well as its unusual shape, and that it is not unreasonable to create another single-family home on that lot, given that it does actually exceed the density requirements for the area. We find that it is within the spirit and intent of the ordinance and that would allow reasonable use of the property. We find that it will not adversely affect property values of surrounding parcels. We did have testimony from abutters expressing concern on the impact of this proposal to their properties, which we did take into consideration. We also have a testimony submitted to us from an appraiser that it would not adversely impact surrounding parcels. We find that it is not contrary to the public interest and that substantial justice will be done. I would add the stipulations that the proposed home be located no closer than 70 feet from the rear property line, and that driveway access would be from Middle Dunstable Road.
Second.
Second by Mr. Patry. Any discussion? Yes.
I would also add, even though it's on the plan here, also that any house is not built on the drainage swale.
I don't.
Is that necessary? Or?
No, I don't think it's necessary.
I don't think it's necessary only because there is a drainage easement that would
Okay.
prohibit them from doing that.
Okay, I withdraw my comment.
Okay. Any other discussion? All those in favor? That's 4-0.
Was there a second?
Yes, I second.
I'm
Yeah.
sorry. That's right.
Catch up. Congratulations, your application's been approved. Again, as I said before, there is a 30-day window of appeal to this decision. And other than that, good luck. Thank you. And I'll close the public meeting for case number 3. And I'll give Mr. McCara a few minutes to catch up.
You can go ahead.
Okay, I'd like to open the public hearing for case number 4 for ECNH Real Estate Holdings Incorporated, owner, 310 Daniel Webster Highway, Sheet A, Lot 733, requesting the following variances. 1, from Land Use Code Section 190-108, Section C, subsection 2, to exceed maximum wall sign area, 150 square feet allowed, 596 square feet permitted, from the November 9, 2004 Zoning Board of Adjustment approval, 847 square feet proposed, and 2, from Land Use Code Section 190-108, Section E, subsection 2, to exceed maximum number of wall signs, 3 allowed, 6 permitted, from the November 14, 1995 Zoning Board of Adjustment approval, 8 proposed. It's in the GBHB zones, Ward 7.
Thank you again. Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. For the record, my name is Morgan Hollis. I'm an attorney at Gottesman and Hollis, 39 East Pearl Street, Nashua. And I'm here this evening. I'm representing the applicant and the owner of the property, ECNH Real Estate Holdings, Inc. I have the Vice President of Project Development, who is here with me this evening in case questions come up. But I think as read into the record, it's a pretty straightforward application. This property is the former Sears building located in the Pheasant Lane Mall. Sears hasn't been there for a few years, and last year my client was able to obtain a conditional use approval from the planning board to allow a gaming facility, charitable gaming facility. So those of you who follow the news, it is the new casino in town that they're working diligently on. The building itself has about a 92,000 square foot footprint, and it's 2 stories. So it'll be a substantial facility. It's essentially taking over the entire Sears building. The Sears building, for those of you not familiar with the way the Pheasant Lane Mall is laid out, each of the properties, each of the main buildings in the Pheasant Lane Mall are located on a lot, essentially a 0 lot line location surrounding each of the buildings, and then they have these funny little tails that come out to the public way, Dan Chan Drive. And in this case, this is a building as shown on the application plan which is submitted. It essentially, the tail wraps around the backside of the Pheasant Lane Mall and comes out to Dan Chan. So that's its frontage. But the building itself is located, if you've been down there, you know where the Sears building used to be. It is all the way to the rear, up by the railroad tracks, all the way to the back end of the project. And what they want to do is put their own signs up. Sears had their own signs. They got a variance for the signage, fairly substantial, 600 square feet, 6 signs. And then looking at the property and how they're going to develop it, they've come up with a schematic for essentially 8 signs and roughly 847 square feet. There has been a signage package. It's called a MOA, Memorandum of Attachment, which shows the signs, the size, the locations of them, and it also shows how they're attached. That is, all the signs are up against the building. There's no freestanding signage out there. So that gives you the picture. As I say, the proposal is from 6 wall signs totaling 596 to 8 wall signs totaling 847. We're adding a couple of additional signs that we'd like, different shapes and different sizes, and we're adding a couple hundred square feet for those signs. We have the casino sign, which is 65 square feet. We have 2 signs of the logo, the Nash, 85 square feet apiece. We have the sports book sign, which is 112 square feet. We have an unnamed sign of 112 square feet. And then we have these two static marketing signs, and you're probably wondering what static marketing is because I wondered what it was, but essentially it is a sign against the wall, sort of no different than signage on an awning or signage of a logo you might see on the side of a building. It essentially breaks up the solid wall, so it's a little bit of an aesthetic improvement, but in this case, it's a sign which will change, and I make this representation so it's in the record. It will change only every 3 months. That's why it's called static. It's not it's LED backlit, but it is not a changeable sign. It is not a TV screen like you see so many of them. It is a static sign, and that is in the record, so we're not going to change that. We'd have to come back to you if we wanted to change it. But essentially advertises that something else is going on in this 180,000 square foot facility other than gambling. There's going to be food and beverage and other activities, and they're going to be displayed on these static signs in some sort of a graphic form. You see right before you pictures so that you can see come in and dine. Now, the bulk of these signs, as shown on the application MOA, all face the south, and they all face the state line, essentially. The state line is 4 feet off of the building. So what they face is a very broad parking of hundreds of parking spaces. The nearest public way, when viewed from these signs, is 1,100 feet, and that's at the intersection of Daniel Webster Highway and the ring road that gets you into the backside of the mall. The nearest building is 1,700 feet away, and that's a commercial building. If you were to stand in the front of this building, look 1,700 feet to the south, you would see a restaurant facility. That's the closest building, and that's what they're going to see. So there are no residences nearby. There's no issue of light. In fact, probably the light from these signs is going to aid the public in terms of visibility, finding the location, and also finding the right entrance and coming to the entrance. Otherwise, as you know, some shopping centers just have the signs and the lights in the parking lot, and they do okay, but you don't want to blind the world with your lights. These will be facing that parking field, and I think will be an aid. So that sets the stage as to what we're asking for. The 5 criteria. Number 1, it's not contrary to the public interest. First, we have the number of signs. We're adding 2 more signs. That's not going to be against the public interest of having no sign clutter. That's really the purpose of a sign ordinance, prevent clutter. It's hard to argue, even if it was on Daniel Webster Highway, because there's so many signs, but in this area, these are all signs on one face of the building. If you drive around the exterior of the mall, you'll see very large signs for Dick's, for Target, for JCPenney. These signs are in fact smaller than that, but collectively they're as large. So it won't be out of character at all with the neighborhood. Also, as to the size of the signs, as I say, they're not individually larger than the existing signs, but collectively they add up to more than what was permitted. The signs, a number and the size of the signs won't alter the character of the neighborhood. It is what it is. It's a commercial project with the need for big signs. As cars come in that driveway, admittedly, my client understands, and I think the reality is the majority of the traffic to this site will come there, likely from Massachusetts. GPS is not going to give you a direction, because when you look up casino, it's going to go 310 Daniel Webster Highway. There is no 310 Daniel Webster Highway. So they're going to have to see it when they get off, and they want to see it where they're going to, and these signs are going to do that job. There's no threat to health, safety, or welfare. As I say, they face entirely, other than the small signs on the back side for side and back entrances. They face the large, very large parking facility to the south. It's not contrary to the spirit and intent. It doesn't create sign clutter. It doesn't distract drivers. There's no public way going by where people will either be blinded or bothered by it. There's no flashing lights involved here. And they will provide proper direction, which is the spirit and intent of the ordinance. Number 3, substantial justice would be done. They need identification. Identification benefits the public. The more message you have as to what's going on in that facility, the better it is. And there's no harm to the public by granting this variance. Facing the parking lot and not being a flashing sign won't create any harm to anyone. Number 4, won't diminish the values of the public. I think that it's pretty clear the distance to the next building is 1,700 feet down way south in Massachusetts, and that being a restaurant with its own signage, this isn't going to adversely affect them. And the mall has approved this signage, so all of the abutters who are lot owners within the mall, and the mall itself, which owns one of the parking facilities, they have all approved this signage. Unnecessary hardship if you don't grant the variance. While it is part of the mall, the uniqueness of this property, as I've stated in the application, is you see it quite clearly from the plans. I don't know if you can scroll up one of the areas or one of the plans. Let's see. One more. There you go. So you can see where it's located, and you see Daniel Webster Highway sort of at the top of the screen, the railroad track and the river at the bottom, and then the intersection that they come in on at 1,100 feet away. And that yellow block is going to be the casino, and it's sort of the add-on, if you will, to the mall. It's really in the back side of it. So keeping it at the variance required, variance granted, the relief of 600 square feet and 6 signs, really doesn't serve any fair and substantial purpose as to the purpose of an ordinance here. The more and better signs you have in that area to direct the public is really going to be helpful, particularly when this starts to open up. Maybe after years of people going there, they'll recognize that it becomes a destination. But in the beginning, we really need the signs for location. I think the proposed use is reasonable. It's only 2 more signs, 200 more feet. And thank you. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Any questions, Mr. Sylvia?
Was there, when the Sears was there was an entrance toward the food court on that, the opposite side of the Sears?
Into the
And did the food court, excuse me, the food court parking area?
There is, yes.
Yeah, and was there any consideration in putting signs there? I know you said you only want to have on the other side of the building?
We have, if you look at the MOA detail set that shows the location of the signs, and there are 3 outside there. They're small, they're much smaller, but they're there so that if you park in that area and you want to walk there and come in that back door, you can find it.
Any other questions? We're all set.
Thank you.
Is anybody in the audience that would like to speak in support of the application? Seeing none, anybody in the audience with questions, concerns, or opposition to this application? Okay, seeing none, I'm going to close the public hearing and open the public meeting. Mr. McCann.
I support the application. I think, certainly there is really no other property like this in Nashua. I do think the additional signage is needed in order to safely direct people to the property, and given how congested this area is, it's going to be important to do that. Otherwise, you add to the congestion. And in looking at, although this is a very large ask, if you will, I think when you look at the signage within the context of the building, it's certainly not out of scale. It doesn't lead to visual clutter. And as was noted in the testimony, the distance from this to anywhere else, it's sitting in a vast sea of parking lots. One, underscores the need for the additional signage, but also there's really going to be no adverse impact that I could see to surrounding properties, and we've certainly had no testimony to that effect.
I'm also going to support the application. We could always look at this and say, hey, what could we trim here? But in the end, it may not be you know, it's not about a personal taste, it's about what it's doing. And again, the distance from the roads, there is really no residential area in the near vicinity that would be affected by this. And it seems like a lot of it is really facing south and a little bit north, and a little bit to the west. But again, I'm going to approve, I'm going to support the application. Mr. Sylvia?
I'm also going to support the application. I didn't go to the mall with the yardstick, but I'm guessing that most of the other signs in the entrance areas at the mall are comparable in size to what's being proposed here. And it also looks like it's comparable to what was at Sears before. And like was said before, it's not anywhere near any residential areas or anyone that would be impacted by this signage. And honestly, I'm a little surprised that more wasn't asked of the sign. I think this is a reasonable request.
I don't have anything to add.
Okay. If no one wants to make a motion, I'll make a motion. Okay. I'd like to make a motion to approve the area variance for ECNH Real Estate Holdings Incorporated, owner 310 Daniel Webster Highway, Sheet A, Lot 733, requesting the following variances. 1, from Land Use Code Section 190-108, Section C, subsection 2, to exceed maximum wall sign area, 150 square feet allowed, 596 square feet permitted, from the November 9, 2004 Zoning Board of Adjustment approval, 847 square feet proposed. And 2, from Land Use Code Section 190-108, Section E, subsection 2, to exceed maximum number of wall signs, 3 allowed, 6 permitted, from the November 14th, 1995 Zoning Board of Adjustment approval, 8 proposed in the GBHB zones, Ward 7. We find that the variance is needed to enable the applicant's proposed use of the property, given the special conditions of the property. Again, this is the old Sears building, a large anchor store, again, located several, at least 1,000 feet away from the public roadway. It's unique in its location and where it stands, and its location at the most southerly end of the mall property. The benefits sought by the applicant cannot be achieved by some other method reasonably feasible for the applicant to pursue other than the variance. It is within the spirit and intent of the ordinance. It will not adversely affect property values of surrounding parcels. It is not contrary to public interest, and substantial justice would be served. So again, I make a motion to approve the area variance. Is there a second? Mr. Sylvia, second. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? That's 4-0. Congratulations, sir. Have a good evening. With that, I'll close the public meeting for case number 4, and I will open the public hearing for case number 5. Okay, case number 5, I'll read it to the record. It's 238 Amherst, is for 238 Amherst Street, LLC owner, Morris Sullivan, New Hampshire Signs applicant, 238 Amherst Street, Sheet 2, Lot 305, requesting the following variances from Land Use Code, Section 190-101, Table 101-7, 1, to exceed a maximum ground sound area, 150 square feet permitted, 143 square feet existing, a total of 731 square feet proposed, and 2, to exceed maximum number of ground signs per premise, 1 permitted, 1 existing, 1 additional ground sign proposed from Land Use Code Section 190-97, Section B, and 3, to exceed maximum size of EMC, 52 square feet permitted, 448 square feet proposed, and 4, to exceed maximum percentage of sign area for an EMC, 50% allowed, 66% proposed, and 5, to allow graphics along with text on EMC where only 3 lines of text is permitted, and from Land Use Code Section 190-103, 6, to allow off-premise sign panels on proposed electronic changing messaging sign for the benefit of Peter's Auto at 280 to 300 Amherst Street and Peter's Bum Clinic at 7 Diesel Road. It's in HB Zone, Ward 1. Welcome. Give us your name and address, please, for the record.
My name is Peter March, New Hampshire Signs, 66 Gold Ledge Avenue, Woburn, New Hampshire.
Fred Pino, New Hampshire Signs, 66 Gold Ledge Ave, Auburn, New Hampshire.
Thank you.
So we're aware that this is a big ask. We're also aware that the board may send us away with some questions that need to be asked as part of the process. But we're requesting 6 variances to install a single-phase digital sign on a property owned by Peters Auto at 238 Amherst Street, Nashua. The property is zoned Highway Business HB. So the variances we're requesting are, first of all, we're allowed 150 square feet on this property. We're asking to add a sign of 588 square feet, 40 feet high. Again, we're allowed 150 square feet. We already have a sign on the property on the other side of it. It's the old Bahama Beach Club sign, and that sign is 143 square feet, so the total signage on this property would be 731 square feet. We have an existing sign, as I stated, so we're asking for another sign. In terms of changing signs, 190-97, we're asking to exceed the maximum size of an EMC. This sign will have a changing component to it. We're allowed 52 square feet, and we're asking for 448. We're also asking to exceed the maximum percentage of the sign area for an EMC. We're allowed 50% of the area of the sign, and we're asking for 66%. And then we're also asking for graphics along with text on this sign. The code only allows us 3 lines of text. We're asking to put graphics on it as well. Finally, 190-103, we're looking for an off-premise sign panel. This property is part of the whole Peters conglomerate, and it's owned by Peters. So in a way, it's sort of off-premise, but sort of not, because it'll be only advertising Peters products. So Peters and Nash has been a premier Nashua auto dealer since 1955. It's owned by the Peters family, who are here today, and by the Proco family, and it's owned and operated by them. They hold both the Honda and Nissan dealerships for the Nashua area, as well as a large used car operation, collision repair facility, and a large service operation. Peters owns this site and has owned it since 2014. It'll form an integral part of the next phase of expansion of the Peters Auto Group. They intend to use it as an adjunct to their other lots at 280 to 300 Amherst Street. This is an 11.5 acre parcel, of which less than half is actually usable due to wetlands. It's an unusual shape. It's bordered on the southwest.
You have to speak on the mic, sorry. You can pull the mic out if you want.
So it's bordered on the southwest by Route 3, and most of the property, most of the frontage on, usable frontage on the property is on Route 3. Some of it is also on the railway line. I'm just trying to gather my directions here. Fred, maybe you can help me. So there's the exit. This is there's Route 3 here. There's a railway line, and this is the other Peters property over here. So most of the usable part of the property is actually on Route 3, not on, obviously on the railway line. And it's not really on 101 because there's a very short frontage on 101. Locating a sign on this property is challenging. The center of the property on the Everett side has a significant amount of wetland, as I said, and that this limits placement of any development, not just a sign, close to the road. The site has an existing 143 square foot sign, which is the old Bahama Beach Club sign, and this exclusively serves traffic on 101. It has no visibility. You can't see it off Route 3. You can't see it really anywhere other than 101. You can see it on 101 in both directions. The most visible, and for sign purposes, the most useful part of the property is a 1,400 linear foot length frontage on the Everett. And the purpose of this variance is to apply for a sign that serves the business as a whole, but is located on the Everett and serves traffic on the Everett exclusively. It'll also really only serve traffic heading north on the Everett. You're not going to be able to see it heading south because of the overpass, the 101 overpass. You will have a very fleeting glimpse of the sign as you come from town and head north on the Everett. On this, Fred, maybe you can help me. This
You're coming from town, heading north.
is that
You'll have
section.
visibility from there. And if you're heading south and you want to head to downtown, you'll have visibility.
Both of those visibilities are essentially very short and essentially meaningless. So the point I'm making is that this sign really services traffic on the Everett heading north, and not a lot of other, there's not a lot of other viewing possibilities on it. What that means is you're going to be looking at it from a very long way away. If you look at the views that we placed on this diagram, you have that with you. View A is what you're going to see from the Everett heading north. Okay, and you're 875 feet away from that, so you're a considerable distance from that. View B is this one. You're going to be viewing it from 600 feet away. And then lastly, if you're heading north on the Everett and you're coming from town, you're going to be viewing it on view C, which gives you a viewing distance of about 480 feet. Both B and C views are very limited and very fleeting. So the real purpose of the sign is to inform traffic heading north, and they'll be looking at it from 900 feet away. So I put a table in this, the viewing distance table, and you can see that in the narrative. The typical person will be looking at an 18-inch letter, and they'll be able to view it from a maximum of 750 feet away to about 180 feet, and they're not going to get that close to it. They will see that letter on the sign if they're traveling at 55 to 60 for about 6 seconds. So it's not a particularly busy view. They're not going to see it for any considerable length of time. The other thing I'll point out is that it is within scale of other signs in the area. So the billboard on Pine Hole Road is 384 square feet. The Wendy's pylon is approximately 310 square feet. But you're looking at the Wendy's pylon from maybe 50 feet away. And you're looking at the Pine Hill sign from somewhere around 150 feet away. Again, I'd stress that this sign you're looking at from 700, 800, 900 feet. So you're looking at it from a long way away. The sign will be used by Peters to advertise only Peters product. It's not an off-premise sign in the sense of the word, other than the fact that this lot is part of a Peters conglomerate, and it's a sign that will be used to advertise Peters product, not any other products. To the points required by the variance, public interest is served by allowing the traveling public to safely identify the location of the business. It's a busy and somewhat confusing piece of land, and though it serves the business, this is not immediately clear. Clear signage would help to secure the future of this parcel for the Peters business. It doesn't threaten public health or safety. I've added some academic studies, or at least the riders to the academic studies to this document. And I have further handouts if required that prove that electronic signs do not actually cause any harm to the traveling public. There's no increased danger. One of them was a study by Texas A&M. The other was a study from the Federal Highways Administration. So these signs don't cause increased accidents. And again, I'm happy to hand out that in more detail if needed. The ability to display electronic messages is key to the need that this business has to display multiple messages on a single medium. I think the city probably recognizes that, and over the past has granted variances for pictures rather than just pure text, coupled with limited cycle times, and obviously in this particular case would abide by that. The character of the neighborhood is such that really it's a highway. There's no residential property that's going to see this, no residential property that's going to be affected by it. It is just a straight highway, and you're looking at it from a highway. The proposed use will observe the spirit of the ordinance. The code concerning signs says they need to be regulated to protect the character of the area where they're located and to conserve property values, including promoting the safety of the traveling public, to protect existing property values. This property is in a commercial zone, it's highway business, yet because of its shape, location, and access, and also because it has a significant amount of wetland, it's difficult to use in a conventional sense. This, being allowed to use this property does in fact promote development and protect property values in this particular area. It'll allow us to clean it up and to make it useful to the owners. Electronic message center is key to the business, being able to promote the varied services offered, sales, service, and repairs on a sign while reducing the size. So the location is approximately 900 to 1,000 feet from the residential zone. You can't see it, there's a wall in the way, and there's a highway in between the residential zone and this sign. Substantial justice, signage is a key element to advertising vehicles and vehicle sales. This particular highway has a very large number of vehicles traveling it in a day. This is a very effective way of promoting a business in a changing world, and Peter's group likes to use advertising of this type, which is cost effective. And this is also a way of them being allowed to at least get some monetary value out of this bit of land, which otherwise is relatively useless apart from a place to park cars. Won't diminish surrounding properties. It's not out of place for the location. The sign's not out of place for the location, for the purpose of which it's intended, fast-moving traffic with long sight lines. Multiple electronic signs exist in the area. Special conditions. The property is unique for a couple of reasons. Frontage off the Everett does not allow access. It has wetland that limits the use of the land. And although it abuts other Peters properties, it can't be used as a retail facility in the traditional sense, as it lacks accessible frontage. The sign is really only effective if it's around the size that we propose, and it has a digital element that will allow it to be changed on a regular basis. So we're in a unique situation, a piece of land that is otherwise relatively useless, and we're really asking for something that allows us to use it as a piece of advertisement. Again, the sign size is relevant to the location and the speed of the traffic. I'm happy to take any questions.
Any questions? Yeah. Mrs. Sylvia.
How much of the value of the sign would be diminished if you went with a non-electronic sign versus the electronic sign?
An electronic sign allows you to cast multiple messages in a period of time. So your driver has 6 seconds to pass it. If you have a static sign, you're going to be looking at the same sign all day, every day. So there is a diminishment of value of the sign if it is static. It just limits the quality of the message and the frequency of allowing people to look at different messages. So this really serves people going north. I do that every day. So if I see a different message every day, there's a different value than if I'm looking at the same message for a month or 2 months or 3 months. So that really, does that answer your question?
Somewhat. I know, I don't know the name for it, but I know there's signs that are not electronic, but they like rotate, kind of I don't know if you guys know what it's called, but I've seen.
It's a technology that is long gone, unfortunately.
Okay.
So it's like the old bus thing where it's a triangle. And
Yeah, the triangle.
So those ones are long gone. I think one of the things that one could look at if you were minded is to limit the number of rotations, bearing in mind, of course, that the sign is going to be seen by a person for 6 seconds and then they're going to be gone.
So, again, you testified that this is really only to serve the northbound traffic.
Correct.
At what point, when you're going northbound, do you expect somebody to to see this sign? Where are you at? Where do you believe you can see the sign? Is it,
When you come out of the trestle, from underneath the trestle,
right, okay.
all the way, almost to, I'd say, halfway to a quarter of, to about here, this exit. You get within 150 yards of the bridge, you pretty much pass it, because there's a group of trees right here. But it's about a 6 to 7 second exposure.
But you, yeah, okay. So you have this field of vision, you kind of have to be a little bit looking that way, right? To see that, right?
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, okay. So the sign its intention, its main intention is for advertising. It's not to say, hey, this is where we are. It's really to say, this is just to advertise.
Yeah, for the most part. You can put, exit 5, is it? Or exit 7, I'm sorry.
Right.
You can put showroom exit 7 on the sign.
Right.
The sign is not entirely electronic. There is a static component to
No,
it.
yeah, I saw that,
Yeah.
yeah.
But to answer your question, yeah, it's to promote the product and services.
Okay. Thank you. Any other questions, Mr. Patry?
So, we had a couple of letters indicating that folks were concerned they'd be able to see the sign from their residence. Can you just address that?
I'm not sure what residence.
Sure.
That if they had the address, maybe we could better.
Sorry, like the one email from 11 Peterborough Place.
So the residences are here, and they have a strong, large concrete wall between them and the road. And the sign is approximately, if you're on Route 3, the Everett, you're 875 feet away from it. You're another 500 or 600 feet away from it if if you're in those residences. And again, there's a concrete wall, like a sound barrier wall between the sign and that.
Any residence on that southbound side of the highway will not be exposed to anybody.
It's a single-sided sign as well, so.
Thank you.
And again, you testify the height of the sign, the top of the sign would be at 40 feet?
Correct, yeah.
Okay. Any other questions by the board? Okay, you can sit down for now. Thank you. Anybody else in the audience like to speak in favor of the application? Seeing none. Anybody in the audience like to speak with questions, concerns, or opposition to the application? Okay, just come up one at a time. Just give us your name and address, please. And you can pull that mic down towards you.
Dee Musioli, 6 Midhurst. I just have a concern about the wetlands portion of, because I know he said that it was going to be a little bit complex to install the sign, and I wonder if that could be run by the Conservation Commission, just to make sure that we're not having any, impacts to the wetlands, and that everything's kind of on the up and up with the Conservation Commission. That's my concern, and, we got a lot of signs on that road, and, I'd rather have people not reading signs and watching where they're going, but that's the only objection/question that I have, and I don't know if he could answer that or not.
Okay.
Thank you.
Any questions? No? Okay. Thank you. Anybody else like to speak with questions, concerns, or opposition? And again, you can pull that mic more towards you and give us your name and address for the record.
Hi, my name's Jennifer Martin. I was one of the neighbors that submitted an email. Jennifer Martin, I live at 11 Peterborough Place.
And I'm Lisa O'Connor, I'm at 11 Peterborough Place.
And I just had concerns. It's a very busy stretch, like 1 mile stretch on that highway from exit 6. You've got the on-ramp, the off-ramp, and then exit 7 east, on-ramp and off-ramp, and then 7 west, on-ramp and off-ramp in that little section. And there's lots of accidents that I've seen there, and lots of very serious accidents that I've known of in there. And then just commuting on that road, there's always near accidents and people, because the on-ramp from exit 6 and the off-ramp to 7 east are like very similar. They go. And so to have some sign on this side of the road, I think is very dangerous. Looking at the petition that they have on their narrative, they said it's not out of scale with other signs in the area, and they mentioned the billboard that was 384 square feet on Pine Hill Road, and the Wendy's pylon that's 310. They're looking, I think, for a sign that's 588 square feet, and that's much larger. It's the 384 is 2/3 the size of that sign, and the 310 is like a little over half of that sign. And those signs aren't the electronic changing signs. Digital signs are just signs. And the other concern where they said that it's not going to affect our house or our vision because of a shrub or trees and a stretch of highway. There is a stretch of highway, but if you look out my bedroom window, there's no trees, and I get a clear view of the highway where the, I don't know if you want to see that up close. I think you're looking right at, through my window.
You're just speaking to the mic, I'm sorry.
So in that picture, I think you're looking right at where that sign is.
Yeah, looks like it.
And I guess the other thing, when they talk about safety in the highways, one of the things they're citing is a report that was done by Texas A&M. And I'm not an engineer or a sign expert, but when I pulled that and I looked at the first page, it says, "The authors wish to recognize Signage Foundation, Inc. for providing funding for this research." If you go on Signing Fundage Foundation, Inc.'s website and who we are, it says, "Through research and education, the Signage Foundation, Inc. analyzes and communicates the societal benefits of on-premise signage." So their business is to have signs made. So you question the bias in their reporting of that. And the other thing, I read this kind of, I don't really understand 100% of it, but I know that they used 4 states as the guidelines for their research. In California, the Highway Safety Information System included 15,500 miles of mainline non-ramp roadways, and the Washington report had 7,000 miles of mainline non-ramp roadways. And this is a ramp roadway. There's multiple ramps. It's not just a straight shot of a highway. So I'm concerned about the safety, and I'm concerned about the view from our house, really.
So our wall does not.
In the mic, please. Sorry. And just your name for the record again.
Lisa O'Connor at 11 Peter Road, please.
Thank you.
So when he says our wall maximizes so that we can't see it, that's absolutely incorrect. We can absolutely see right over that space, and that billboard or signage would be right there. Literally right across the street from our house. It would blaze into our house with all those shining lights. It would really impact our living situation, for sure.
Any questions by the board? Mr. Sylvia, I'm sorry.
No worries. So just confirm, there is a wall, but you see over the wall from where you are.
Yes.
In that picture,
You
yeah.
can see the top of the wall.
Just for folks at home who can't see what we saw.
Our house is
Yeah.
up higher on our lot, so, when we're in our main living space and on our second floor, we can see over that wall, so.
Is the case, I'm sorry, is the case the same for your neighbors as well?
Yeah, so all of our trees, we have trees, we just had to take one down, but we have trees, and they're all gonna lose their leaves, so every single person that I live next to is gonna see that sign. That's all they're gonna see.
Good. Okay. Any other questions by the board? Thank you. Anybody else in the audience like to speak with questions, concerns, or opposition? Okay, seeing none, sir, you have 5 minutes to come back and rebut that.
The First Lady referred to the wetlands.
Sorry, could you just pull up the microphone just a little bit? Thank you, I appreciate it. Thank you.
The First Lady referred to the wetlands. We're not going to be building in the wetlands. And I have a suggestion that may ease the abutters' thoughts as we progress at this, but we're not going to be building in the wetlands, so the wetlands are going to be unaffected. As far as the reports are concerned, I'll happily give them to the board, but also to the Honorable Lady. And there's one from the Federal Highway Administration, so it's a government report. The other is from the Texas A&M. And both of those reports state that there is no additional road safety issues from this sort of sign. So I'm happy to hand that out. As far as viewing is concerned, maybe a good suggestion would be to get a land surveyor in to survey the correct location for the sign that minimizes the sight lines to these people's property and limits the view that they have of the sign while protecting the view to Route 3. So that would be something we'd be happy to do. The last thing we'd be happy to do is there's a service which we occasionally use that would allow us to create a video that someone would see as they drove past the sign to show the size and the lighting effects of the sign. It takes us a couple of weeks to generate that, so it would be something that the board and maybe the...
Excuse me, sir. Excuse me, ma'am. The acoustics are really good in this room, and I apologize. We could hear everything you're saying, so that's okay. I just, thank you very much. If you need to go out the door, that's fine. All right. Sorry. Sorry, sir.
So we're happy to put a presentation together that shows, a video presentation that shows a location of a sign that would partly address some of the lady's concerns. So again, I have the report, the two reports I could be happy to hand to her. They're the executive summaries, they're not the complete report, but both of them are, good, honest, academic reports that state that these signs don't create more accidents. Second thing is we're not going to be building in the wetlands. And thirdly, we'd offer getting a surveyor in to survey the location and do an impact study on these ladies' properties.
Do you have any more?
Unless the board wants me to do more.
Mr. Sylvia?
So given that you're okay with getting a land surveyor, would you request that we table this tonight?
Yeah, absolutely. If you're in agreement with that, yes.
Any other questions? Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
You now have the opportunity to come back for 5 minutes, if you wish. You don't have to rebut anything or anything that he just spoke to. And again, just your name and address for the record.
Jennifer Martin, 11 Peterborough Place. I know they have reports about the safety and that there's no increase in accidents, but I would wonder if those reports are just of a regular straight highway and not all of those on-ramps and off-ramps and the 2 overpasses that create a shadow. It's a very dangerous 1 mile stretch of land right there, and I don't know if they have reports that would reflect that particular situation that we're talking about. That's it.
Hold on, ma'am. Ma'am, hold on. We have a question for you. Mr. Sylvia.
Thank you. If the signage was non-electronic versus electronic, would that make any difference in your opinion regarding safety, traffic issues, and the impact to your property?
It might definitely. I think having some movement with graphics and changing texts, you want people to be watching where they're going, and people coming in and off of the highway over here, you don't want people looking over to their left at what the sign says, even if it's a static sign, I think. But for sure, if it's a changing sign, it's very dangerous.
Okay. Thank you, ma'am.
You're welcome. Thank you.
With that, I'm going to close the public hearing and open the public meeting. Mr. McCarroll.
I can't find support for this application. I think that we see a number of cases where people are, obviously, we do, where there were requests to exceed our sign requirements in terms of size, in terms of number of signs, sometimes in terms of the use of electronic messaging. And there are times when I can find support for those requests, particularly where it does seem that it will improve the ability of the public to find a particular business. It will improve navigation, reduce congestion, where the sign isn't consistent with the surrounding area, where it seems to make sense in proportion to the building. But I don't see any of those characteristics here. I don't see how this sign would help people navigate to the business. Perhaps it could, but that's certainly not what I see. I don't see how it would reduce congestion. It doesn't, where it's located is not proximate to the entrances to the business at all. So this seems to me to be essentially a billboard, and whether it's electronic or it's not electronic, I can't find support.
Yeah, again, I was struggling with this because, again, to your point, what it is and what it's doing. I understand what the purpose of the sign is, and I think that anybody who owned a business would welcome to be able to advertise to a major traffic corridor. But again, I'm having a hard time to understand the immediate benefit to that land. And I understand that the land owned is abutting the highway. But I had the same thoughts as you, Mr. McCara. I know this is not a billboard, but it seems in that respect that way there. And again, there are several variances here. I don't say that I would not say, I mean, in this case, the way this is presented, I've struggled with this a lot. If this was something a little bit different, and I'm not saying that I would, but I'm just saying if it was something a little different for a different purpose, I may be open to that, or I may understand what that need is. Again, if there was a real need for some directional purpose to the sign, but at this point, the way this was presented, what was being asked for, the size of the sign, where it is, I'm having a hard time with this application. Again, there's a lot here, and again, I know that I do. I think we all spend our time looking at these locations, going through the package, and I literally went through this a couple of times, and I did have some questions for staff. In my mind, they were answered. They were answered without me asking them, but I did have some questions. But when I was going through this, and with several of the other cases too, but this is why staff is there to help us. And this one here seemed to be more. We see some complicated stuff, but this is just for me a lot. And again, it's not a personal thing. I'm just looking at what we're here to approve and what the variance criteria is. And I don't think this meets the criteria for the variance, simply said. Mr. Sylvia.
Okay. My main concern was the electronic element of the sign. The applicant mentioned 2 other signs nearby, but those are not electronic. I know there's an electronic sign on Amherst Street nearby at the Social Security office, but that is very different than an on-ramp. The speeds are different and it's straight ahead versus this seems like it's kind of in the corner of the eye of motorists. There's also the issue with the folks on Peterborough over there. I still have a lot of questions in regard to how much this would impact things. I don't know how the rest of the board feels about the requested table, although I think if it's an electronic sign, I wouldn't feel comfortable with that no matter what. But I would like to learn more in regard to a non-electronic.
I would be inclined to table to see if the applicant can address any of our concerns and some of the abutters' concerns, but I also realize that may not be something that can be addressed.
Just following down that vein, I wouldn't be opposed to tabling it necessarily. I don't know that having a surveyor locate where the sign is, and, really providing additional information for this same application is going to change my vote. So the part of me hesitates to want to put the applicant through the time and the expense of going through that, when, at least for me, it wouldn't change how I see this application. But that, again, I'm just one person. But that's where I would hesitate to table it. And like you, I looked at this and I tried to pick it apart and see, well, gee, could you grant, 3 of these and not the other 3? But I didn't find a good way to do that. But I'm open to more, other thoughts on.
And again, because of the way this was applied for, again, same thing with you, I was looking, for example, could I see a purpose for a sign somewhere, another sign? Maybe I could, but not the way that this is presented to us. I just can't do that. So I believe that I don't think my vote would change, but for example, we've seen where another application may come, it's completely different. We do the test, and if we find that it's not, it's not the same with the application, then that's a whole different application. And I'm not suggesting that happens. I'm just saying that the want by the applicant I believe, can be achieved in some other manner. And so with that, I think at this point, I'm not opposed to tabling, but again, like Mr. McCara, I don't know if the result would end up being differently. But again, there could, at a different meeting, could be a different set of people sitting here. So I guess what I'm saying is, the applicant offered that. I'm open to it if this moves this case in one direction or another. But I'm not at this time willing to approve the application.
It sounds like there's a consensus not to table it, and ultimately the applicant can come back with a different proposal. That is what you're saying, so.
No, I didn't say this.
Oh, no, sorry, I didn't mean to say that. You said that, but just they could.
Yeah, and I'm not suggesting they do anything.
Oh,
I apologize. I'm just explaining what's happened in the past. But what I'm saying for this particular one, I'm not comfortable, going forward with an approval. But if there was, it seems like there's 2 people that would definitely suggest a tabling, I would support that to have the majority. If that's what I feel is strong. If you feel strongly, both of you feel strongly about that, and I don't know how you feel, Mr. McCara, about that.
I'm in the same place you are. I don't see how it would change my vote, but I do think that if, the other 2 members feel, that tabling is appropriate.
I don't feel strongly one way or the other. I just know that as it stands right now, I agree with you that I couldn't support this, but I don't know enough about anything else.
So for me, I don't know what would change that would make me support this at this point, unless we're removing things from the application. And what would that be? And having tried to pick this apart like you, I don't know what they could remove that would give them what they want, what they're looking for.
That wouldn't make it a different application.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
I mean, I would like to, my preference is to table it and let them, again, I don't know that my vote would change, it may not, but I'd like to give them the opportunity to do that.
Just kind of looking for a consensus what we want to do. Because otherwise, I know that you or I at this point would probably make a motion to deny the application. And again, if that vote were to fail, then we'd have to get, then another motion would have to be made. And Well, I'm saying, I don't know if we'd be in a stalemate.
Then we'd have to make, right.
Because
We don't want a stalemate, so
Yeah.
we'll have to make a
Because there's
motion.
only four of us, it's not an odd number.
Yeah, and
Right.
like I said, I'm not in favor of this as it is right now, so if that means anything. For the sake of consensus, I'm willing to withdraw my consent for a table.
Want to make a motion?
You want to make it or you want me to?
Yes, if you could make a motion. That'd be great.
Sure.
Thank you.
All right, just because it's a lot to read, right?
Yeah.
All right, I'd like to make a motion that the application of 238 Amherst Street LLC, owner, Maura Sullivan, New Hampshire Signs, applicant, for 283 Amherst Street, requesting the following variances from Land Use Code Section 190-101, Table 101-7. 1, to exceed maximum ground sign area, 150 square feet, 150 square feet permitted, 140 square feet existing, a total of 731 square feet proposed. And 2, to exceed the maximum number of ground signs per premise, 1 permitted, 1 existing, 1 additional ground sign proposed. From Land Use Code Section 190-97, B:3, B. 3, to exceed the maximum size of EMC, electronic messaging, they were changing sign, 52 square feet permitted, 448 square feet proposed. 4, to exceed the maximum percentage of sign area for an EMC, 50% allowed, 66 proposed. 5, to allow graphics along with text on EMC where only 3 lines of text is permitted. And from Land Use Code Section 190-103. 6, to allow off-premises sign panels on proposed electronic changing message sign for the benefit of Peters Auto at 280 to 300 Amherst Street and Peters Bump Clinic at 7 Diesel Road. Be denied. We find that the variance is not needed to enable the applicant's proposed use of the property, given the special conditions of the property, and the benefits sought by the applicant cannot be achieved, or can be achieved, by some other method reasonably feasible for the applicant to pursue other than the variance, although there are special conditions of the property that make it distinct. We find that what is proposed, the purpose of the sign, isn't necessary to achieve what the applicant is seeking to achieve. Obviously, the purpose is advertising. You can advertise in many ways. And we find that it is not within the spirit and the intent of the ordinance. We do think that the spirit and the intent of the ordinance is to use signage to help identify businesses, guide people to businesses, and those purposes are not evident in this application. We find that I don't want to say will, but we find that it may affect the value of surrounding parcels. We do have testimony from people living in the surrounding area that it would adversely impact their use. We find that it is contrary to the public interest, and we do not believe that substantial justice would be done.
I'll second that. Any discussion? All those in favor of the denial? That's 3. And
Opposed, yeah.
you're opposed?
Yeah.
Okay.
To the motion, yeah.
So it's
Yeah.
4 in favor of the denial.
Oh, sorry, no, I mean to vote no on the motion to deny.
Okay.
Right,
So it's
3 to 1, 3-1.
3 to 1,
Yes.
okay, so three in favor of denial and 1 not in favor of denial. Sorry about that, your application is not approved, but again, there's a 30-day window of appeal. If you need more information on that, certainly call the planning department. They'll be more than happy to help you out. Thank you for coming. Appreciate it. Okay, with that, I'm going to close the public meeting for case number 5. And I'll give you a minute to catch up.
I think I got it.
Okay. All right. Okay, so now we have a rehearing request, and a rehearing request is just done amongst the board. There is no public input to that. So I'm going to read the rehearing request into the record. Correct, Mr. Falk? Should I?
I mean, the original
Yeah, so what?
application request?
Do you want me to read it? Should I be reading this into the record? A rehearing request for the city of Nashua?
Yeah, you could. I mean, basically, staff would just recommend that the board just grant the rehearing for this.
Yep. Excuse me?
The staff would just recommend that the board grant the rehearing for this. There were some neighbors that were not notified inadvertently, so just that automatically just causes us to come back. There's really no need to go over the letters that we got from a few of the neighbors. I mean, you can read the ad.
Yeah,
you know,
that's what I was going to do.
That ad, just,
So let
staff
me-
recommends you just go ahead and just
Right.
vote to grant the rehearing.
So let me read that, and then
That's
we'll
fine.
get a consensus on the rehearing. Thank you. So the rehearing request, it was originally for the city of Nashua, owner of L. Spitbrook Road, Roby Park, Sheet B, Lot 2189, requesting special exemption from Land Use Code Section 1A-115 to work in a critical wetland buffer to remove trees and brush, install 9 wooden pedestrian bridges, T-pads, disc chain baskets, directional signage, wetland markers, and trash barrels for a proposed 18-hole disc golf course, R18 Zone 19. And the zoning board approved this case on June 25th of 2024. So again, as Mr. Fox said, that there was inadvertently, I think, 4 butters that were missed in the advertisement. So again, we won't go through the whole rehearing request. One of the questions was whether or not we advertised correctly. So it's very clear that we haven't. So I think we all have consensus on that. So I'll make a motion to grant the rehearing request. Second by Mr. Sylvia. All those in favor? That's 4-0. Okay. So with that, we have. Yeah, no, we don't have a sheet for that. That's, you'll record the vote for that?
Yep, there was a sheet in the back.
That's a different sheet. I have it downstairs.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, so we'll get that. Mr. Patry?
So I'm assuming that means then it will be on the agenda again for a future meeting, and we'll have to rehear the testimony.
Re-advertised and reheard.
So all these folks will get notice of whenever it's back on the agenda.
Okay, good. We have some meeting minutes from July 23rd. Does anybody have any corrections or anything? Yeah, Mr. McCarron?
I've just got a few, if I can find them all.
Okay.
The first one is on page 2, super minor. I guess 4th line up from the bottom, Mr. Mancara asked if the only way in and out of the basement through the house, there should just be is through the house. Super minor. And on page 5, paragraph in kind of the middle of the page, well, starting, again, super minor, I'm sorry, in that first full paragraph, second row from the bottom, that's sides, that the proposed size would allow adequate space on both sides, not sided. That makes sense? And then in the next paragraph, the third sentence from the top, it should be kids' bedrooms, not bathrooms. And again, super minor, on page 8, the second paragraph from the bottom, the last line, the second to the last line, where it says this is a zoning issue, we've got a period and a comma. I get rid of the period. And even if the fence would solve this, I just say, and if the fence would solve this, strike the word even. And I think that was the last one I had. That was the last one I had. Should have dog-eared all the pages. That was it.
Anybody else have anything? Okay, so I'll make a motion to approve the July 23rd, 2024 meeting minutes.
As amended.
Okay.
Second.
All right, okay, all in favor? It's 4-0.
I'm sorry, who seconded that?
Mr.
I did,
Mr.
yeah.
Patrick. And I think the only thing else we have left is whether or not there's any regional impact.
I didn't see anything.
Yeah, I didn't see anything
I didn't
earlier.
see anything.
Okay, so no regional impact. Any other discussion by the board?
Motion to adjourn?
Yes, motion to adjourn is at, I believe, 8:54? 8:34. Adjourned at 8:34. All right, thank you.